How was your day? Maybe there was a moment when everything felt formless. When the noise was too much and the shape of things had come undone. There was a time before the world had shape, no light, no ground. Nothing but open, endless dark, and somewhere inside it, something waiting. In Greek, they called it chaos. You don't have to hold anything together tonight. Just let it all be formless for a while. And listen, this story starts before the very first morning. Out of that first dark Gaia rose, the earth herself. She didn't arrive. She simply became, solid and vast and patient as only something eternal can be. Then Eros, not love as we know it, but the force that pulls things together. The reason anything reaches toward anything else. Without him, nothing would ever touch. Gaia looked up and made Kronos. The sky, she made him herself, from her own depth. Then the sky and the earth held each other. Everything that lives came from that. You've been carrying something today. Maybe it was invisible to everyone else. There's a story that knows that feeling. The weight of what's inside, waiting to become something. The ancients told this story by fire, at the end of the day, not to teach. To remind themselves that the world came from nothing once, and became everything. This is what we do here. One myth, one night. The oldest stories the world has kept. You don't have to do anything. Just let the dark hold you a little. Find your stillness now, just settle. If sleep finds you before the story ends, the gods who made the world have watched over sleeping mortals since the very beginning. This is only the beginning of the story. The part most people never reach, the Titans, the war. The first day the sun was placed in the sky, that's still ahead. But not tonight. Tonight, just this. If tonight felt like something, subscribe. We'll be here next week. Another story, another night like this. Now back to ours. Before the first god was born, a chaos held everything. Not empty, full. The way a seed is full before it opens. The ancient Greeks understood this. Emptiness is not absence. Gaia, the earth, was the first to have a name. The first to have a self. She is not a metaphor. To the Greeks, she was real. The ground beneath you still carries her. Kronos spread himself above her. The dome of sky full of stars. He was beautiful. He was also cruel. Remember that for later. Together they made the Titans. 12 of them. Enormous, ancient, neither god nor mortal, something in between. The first children of earth and sky. But Kronos was afraid. Everything he and Gaia made, he pushed back inside her, into the earth. He could not bear what he had made to exist beside him. Inside the dark, a Titan named Kronos heard his mother's pain. He made a decision. We'll come back to this. But for now, this is where the world began to change. Inside the earth, in the dark below the first sky, the Titans waited. 12 of them. Each one a world in itself. They had names, they had weight. They had never seen daylight. Gaia felt all 12 of them. Inside her. Their weight was her weight. Their stillness was her stillness. She did not explain her grief to anyone. There was no one to explain it to. Kronos came to her each night, the sky pressing down on the earth, and each night he pushed the children back into the dark. Maybe you know that feeling, something in you, unable to come out. Among the Titans, one heard his mother differently. Kronos, the youngest. He listened to the sound of what was being held back. He decided it should not be held back anymore. Gaia made him a sickle, curved, gray flint, sharp as grief. She placed it in his hands in the dark. He held it. He waited for his father to come again. Kronos descended. The sky folded over the earth as it did every night, and Kronos in the dark acted. The sky and the earth were separated, forever. Where Kronos fell into the sea, foam gathered, white and moving. From that foam, Aphrodite rose, born not from love, but from the wound that made love possible. The Titans were free. They walked out of the earth into the first open air. Kronos stood under the sky his father had been. He looked up at the space where Kronos had hung. He had become the ruler of the world. Kronos took Rhea as his companion. Titan and Titaness. Together they ruled what the Greeks called the Golden Age. Soft, unhurried, full of ease. That's how it's remembered. But Uranos, before he was separated from the earth, had spoken. A curse or a prophecy, they are often the same thing. He said, "Your own child will do to you what you did to me." Kronos heard it, and when Rhea bore him children, he swallowed them, one by one: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon. He held them the same way his father had held the Titans. Inside. You've been there. Holding something down because you were afraid of what it would become if it got out. That's not a flaw. That's the oldest fear in the world. Rhea bore a sixth child. She had made a decision. She wrapped a stone in cloth. She handed the cloth to Kronos. He swallowed it. He did not notice it was stone. The sixth child, Azuf, she hid on the island of Crete, in a cave deep in a mountain. Nymphs fed him honey. A goat gave him milk. He grew in the dark, unknowing. Kronos ruled the Golden Age, not knowing his youngest son existed. The world was at peace. But peace held by fear is not peace. It is a held breath. In the cave, Zeus grew. He did not know what he was. He did not know what had been taken from him. He only knew the warmth of the cave and the taste of honey. Rhea came to him when it was time. She told him who he was. She told him what had been swallowed. She told him what she needed him to do. He listened. A Titaness named Metis helped him. She gave Kronos a drink, mixed with herbs that made him sick. The things inside him, his own children, began to come back out. First came the stone, then Poseidon, a god of the sea, then Hades, a lord of what is hidden, then Hera, Demeter, Hestia. 5 Olympians blinking into the world for the first time. Zeus looked at his brothers and sisters. They had never met. They had been inside the same dark for years. They were strangers. They were family. He had freed them. Kronos still held the world. The Titans still ruled. What Zeus had freed was not yet victorious, only alive. There is a difference. That's the part that stays with you. Zeus sought allies. He went to the edges of the world, to Tartarus, the deep below the deep, where other prisoners of Uranos still waited, the ones too old to be Titans. There were the Cyclopes, 3 of them, each with one great eye. Uranos had locked them away for being too different, too strange, not Titan enough. They had been there since before the Titans. There were the Hecatonchires, the 100-handed ones. 3 brothers, each with 50 heads and 100 arms. Even Uranos feared them, so he buried them deepest of all. Zeus freed them. He released the locks Uranos had placed. The ancient prisoners blinked in what light there was. Zeus said, "Come with me. Fight beside me." They said yes. The Cyclopes gave gifts to the Olympians. To Zeus, a lightning. To Poseidon, the trident. To Hades, a helmet that made him invisible. 3 gifts. 3 weapons. The war had its tools. Now Zeus stood at the edge of a war. His family on one side. His father's family on the other. The world was the battlefield. The Greeks called it the Titanomachy, the War of Titans. The war lasted 10 years. Let that settle. 10 years of sky and earth shaking. 10 years of the world not knowing if it would survive. We'll come back to this. The Titans were ancient. They had ruled the world for a generation. They were not weak. But the Olympians had something the Titans did not. They had been born in hiding. They knew how to survive. Hades put on the helmet. He became invisible and moved through the Titan lines. No one could touch what they could not see. That's the part most people miss about Hades. He won the war. Poseidon struck with the trident. The ocean rose. The earth shook. Things that had been solid became sea. The Titans had never faced an ocean that moved with intention. And Zeus threw lightning. The sky remembered what it had been before Kronos took it. The mountains split. The sea boiled. The fire from the lightning reached the sky and back. The Titans fell. The Titans were defeated. Zeus and his siblings had won. Now they faced a question no one had ever faced. What do you do with a world once you have it? They divided it. Zeus took the sky. Poseidon took the sea. Hades took the realm below. The earth, Gaia's body, belonged to all of them, and to no one. The Titans, most of them were imprisoned in Tartarus. The 100-handed became their guards. Those who had been kept underground now kept others underground. The world turns in circles. Not all Titans were imprisoned. Kronos' brothers and sisters who had not fought, Atlas, Prometheus, Epimetheus, were treated differently. Some were given work, some were given freedom. Remember Prometheus. We'll come back to him. The Olympians gathered on Mount Olympus. 12 of them, one for each of the Titans who had been born. The mountain was the highest point of Gaia's body. They lived where sky met earth. Hestia, the eldest, took the center. The hearth. She was the firstborn of Kronos and the last freed. She asked for no throne. She took the fire. She kept it burning. Demeter took the earth, not Gaia's body, but what grew from it. Grain and harvest and the turning of seasons. She was the reason things grew. She did not make it happen. She was it happening. Hera became queen. Not because Zeus made her queen. She was the daughter of Kronos and Rhea. She had earned what the Olympians had. She expected to be treated accordingly. Poseidon took the sea and made it his entirely. Every ocean, every river, every wave. He was not content with calm water. He made it move. The sea before Poseidon was different, slower. The ancient Greeks who first told this story lived beside the sea. They sailed it. They feared it. They needed it. Poseidon was not a character to them. He was the reason they came home. The creation myth was not told to explain things. It was told to make things bearable. If the world came from chaos and pain and revolution, then so did you. And you turned out all right. Hesiod, a Greek poet who lived 8 centuries before the Common Era, wrote this down. He was a farmer. He heard these stories from shepherds and sailors and the wind. He gave them their shape. He called the work Theogony, the birth of the gods. He believed every line. He wrote it as a man writing the history of everything. Because to him, it was. 3,000 years ago, someone was telling this same story at the end of a long day, so the people listening could sleep. That hasn't changed. We're doing the same thing now. Hades took what was below. Not a punishment, he chose it. Or the stories say he did. He took the realm of the dead and made it a place of order. Not cruelty. Rules. The river Styx ran through his realm. The dead arrived there. Charon waited with his boat. 1 coin for the crossing. This is where the Greeks put their most careful thought about what comes after. Beyond the river, 3 fields. Elysium, where the virtuous rested. The asphodel meadows, where the ordinary dead wandered. Tartarus below. For those who had caused great harm. The Greeks sorted the dead carefully. Athena was born differently. Zeus swallowed her mother Metis, who had grown pregnant, afraid of prophecy again. And Athena grew inside him until one day his head split open and she arrived, fully armed. Apollo and Artemis were born on the floating island of Delos. Their mother Leto wandered pregnant, chased by Hera's jealousy, until Delos offered her shelter. The twins arrived together, light and silver. Ares was born of Zeus and Hera, the god of war. He was not loved in Olympus. Even his parents disliked him. Not for what he did, for what he enjoyed. There is a difference. Hephaestus was thrown from Olympus. By Hera, some say, or by Zeus. The stories differ. He landed on the island of Lemnos, his leg broken by the fall. He survived, then he built. He built a forge. He made things, beautiful things, impossible things, a palace of bronze, self-moving servants, nets of fine gold. The gods needed him. They had exiled the best craftsmen they had. Hermes was born at dawn in a cave on Mount Selene. By afternoon he had walked to Thessaly, stolen Apollo's cattle, and played innocent. He was perhaps 1 day old, that's Hermes. Dionysus came last. Born mortal, made immortal. Born twice, once from his mother, once from Zeus's thigh after his mother died, seeing Zeus's true form. The god who knows what it is to almost not exist. 12 Olympians, each with a domain, a gift, a wound. Born from the same chaos, the same revolution, the same mother's patience. They were not always good, but they were always real. The world had its rulers, but it did not yet have its people. The earth was vast and empty of mortals. Something was going to have to make them. Remember Prometheus, this is his part. Prometheus took clay from the earth. He shaped it into small forms, a 2 legs, 2 arms, a face turned upward. He gave them life. He made the first humans with the patience of someone who knew how long they would matter. Athena breathed into them. Some stories say it was Athena. Some say Prometheus alone. The stories disagree on who gave the breath. They agree it was a gift. And like most gifts, it came with cost. Epimetheus, Prometheus's brother, had been given the task of giving gifts to every creature. By the time he reached humans, he had run out. Everything useful had already been given away. The humans were cold. They had no claws, no fur, no venom, no speed. They stood upright in a world that had not been built for them. They would not survive winter. Prometheus saw this. He went to Olympus. He looked at the god's fire, the sacred fire, not to be shared with mortals. Zeus had decided this. Prometheus decided differently. He took a fennel stalk. He hid a coal inside it. He walked back down to the earth. He gave fire to the humans. They were warm. They survived. They thrived. And Zeus found out. Zeus was not simply angry. He was afraid fire was a boundary. The boundary between mortal and divine. Prometheus had erased it. Now anything could follow. Zeus knew this. That's the part that matters. Zeus chained Prometheus to a rock in the Caucasus Mountains. Every day, an eagle, sent by Zeus, came to eat his liver. Every night, because he was immortal, the liver grew back. Every morning, the eagle returned. He did not regret it. The stories are clear on this. Prometheus did not regret giving fire to the humans. He thought the price was fair. That is either the saddest thing or the most beautiful thing in the myth. Possibly both. Zeus had more anger left. He ordered Hephaestus to make something, a woman, the first mortal woman. He gave her to the brothers Epimetheus and Prometheus as a gift. Her name was Pandora. Each god gave her a gift. Athena gave wisdom. Aphrodite gave beauty. Hermes gave curiosity. Apollo gave music. Hera gave us some stories, say a jar. The Greeks called it a pithos. We call it Pandora's box. Remember that for later. Epimetheus ignored his brother's warning. He accepted the gift. He welcomed Pandora. He was the one who forgot things, who gave away all the gifts to the animals. He trusted anyway. Pandora opened the jar, not from malice, from curiosity. Hermes had given her that. She could not open it. Everything inside it flew out into the world: disease, grief, hunger, old age, pain. She closed the lid. Too late for most of them. But one thing remained at the bottom. Something that had been packed with everything else. Hope. Whether it stayed inside as a mercy or a cruelty, the Greeks debated for centuries. Maybe you know that feeling. The thing at the bottom of the jar. After everything that flew out, the grief, the exhaustion, the things that hurt, there's still something left. Small and warm and unreasonable. The world now had mortals in it. It had grief and hunger and age. It had fire. It had all 12 Olympians. It had Prometheus still on his rock. It had hope in a jar. It was becoming complicated, recognizable. The Greeks told this story for thousands of years. They changed it, each teller adding something. Each generation receiving it. The shape you know is one version. There were hundreds. What they kept consistent: the world began in the dark. Something inside the dark wanted to exist, it did. There was violence. There was love. There was a ruler who was afraid. And from all of that, a world. The same chaos that made the first world is in everything that follows from it. Including you. Including tonight. Including whatever you're carrying that hasn't found its shape yet. Give it time. Chaos always becomes something. The world had its gods. It had its mortals. Now it needed its shape, rivers and mountains, seasons and tides. The Olympians did not build this. They became it. Demeter walked the earth and grain followed. Not because she commanded it, because she was the principle of it. Where she rested, things grew. Where she grieved, they did not. Apollo took the sun. Each morning he drove it across the sky in a chariot of fire. The Greeks understood this literally. The sun moved because Apollo moved it. Every sunrise was his choice. Artemis took the moon. Where Apollo lit the day, his twin sister lit the night. She hunted in the silver hours. The forests were hers. The wild animals ran with her, not from her. Hermes became the messenger. Between Olympus and the mortal world, between life and death. He alone could travel everywhere without permission. He wore winged sandals. He moved faster than thought. Aphrodite moved through the mortal world, and gods looked up from whatever they were doing. Her domain was not beauty, that's too small. It was the pull, the reason things reached toward each other. Same as Eros at the beginning. Eros found his domain without needing to claim it. Wherever there was war, he was. Not causing it, simply present in it. The way fire is present in anything burning. The Greeks did not like him. They respected him. Hephaestus built everything the gods needed. Their palaces on Olympus, the armor of Achilles, the chains of Prometheus, the net that caught Ares. He made the tools of every story. From his broken leg, he built an unbreakable world. Zeus sat at the center of all of it. Not comfortable governing. There is a difference. He watched the world he had won. He knew what his father had felt. He tried to do it differently. Sometimes he succeeded. The mortals grew. They built cities. They made laws. They buried their dead. They told stories about the gods who had made them. The gods listened. Sometimes they interfered. Sometimes they helped. Often they did both at once. Prometheus was still on his rock. The eagle still came. Every day. The other gods did not speak of it often. There is a kind of guilt that the powerful feel when they watch someone suffer for a principle. They did not name it. Demeter had a daughter. Persephone sprang herself in a girl's form. She ran in the meadows above the earth, picking flowers, laughing. The grain grew wherever she walked, the way it grew for her mother. Hades saw her. He had been below all this time, ruling his quiet realm, managing the dead, absent from the warmth above. When he saw Persephone, he did not send a message. He acted. He opened the earth and took her. Demeter searched. She walked the earth for 9 days. She did not eat. She did not sleep. She called her daughter's name and the grain stopped growing. The earth felt her grief. It went cold. Nothing grew. Mortals began to starve. Zeus watched the world go cold and quiet and understood that this could not continue. Even gods cannot let everything die. He sent Hermes to the underworld. Hermes found Persephone in Hades' palace. She had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds. This matters. Anyone who eats the food of the dead cannot fully return to the living. 6 seeds, 6 months below. The arrangement was made, 6 months below. 6 months below. Persephone became queen of the underworld and goddess of spring simultaneously. Both. Not half of each, both completely. When she returns each spring, Demeter's joy brings the grain back. When she descends each autumn, a Demeter's grief turns the world cold. This is what the Greeks said winter was. Not weather. Grief. A mother missing her daughter. Here's the part the myths never make obvious. Persephone chose to stay, in some versions. Not all. But some? She ate the seeds knowing what it meant. The queen of the dead was not only a prisoner. The seasons were the first time mortals felt the gods in their bodies, in the cold of their hands. In the first green thing, after a long winter, the myth made weather personal. That's what myths do. Zeus looked at the world and saw it growing complicated. Mortals building, fighting, loving, dying. He decided to shape them more carefully. He sent floods. He started again, more than once. We remember one flood. There were others. The flood Zeus sent, this one left 2 survivors. Deucalion, son of Prometheus, and Pyrrha, daughter of Epimetheus. The son of the god who gave fire. The daughter of the god who gave away all the gifts. They were on a boat. The water fell. The boat settled on a mountain, some say Parnassus. They stepped out onto Whetstone. The world was empty. Just them. The oracle of Delphi told them what to do next. The oracle said, "Throw the bones of your mother behind you." They were confused. Then Deucalion understood. The earth is the mother of all things. Her bones are stones. They picked up stones and threw them. The stones Deucalion threw became men. The stones Pyrrha threw became women. The new humans rose from the earth itself. The Greeks understood this as their own origin, a born not from heaven, but from the ground beneath their feet. The world after the second beginning was quieter. The new mortals did not know the golden age. They knew only what they could make, which, it turned out, was enough. Apollo had a gift beyond the sun. He gave humans the gift of music. He played the lyre. When he played, rivers slowed. Animals stopped moving. Even the wind listened. Music was the second fire. He also gave the gift of prophecy, the ability to see what was coming. Through the oracle at Delphi, mortals traveled months to ask a question. The oracle answered in riddles. The answer was always true, usually too late to help. Athena gave mortals wisdom. But wisdom is different from knowledge. Knowledge is what you have. Wisdom is what you do with it. She didn't give them answers. She gave them the ability to ask better questions. Athena and Poseidon once contested for a city. Both offered gifts. Poseidon struck the ground, a spring of salt water rose. Athena pressed her palm to the earth. An olive tree grew. The city chose Athena's olive tree, not for sentiment but for survival. Salt water is beautiful. Olive oil feeds you, lights your lamp, preserves your food, heals your wounds. The city became Athens. The olive tree is still there. Poseidon was not pleased. He sent floods to the plains of Attica. Then he accepted it. The sea god had lost to wisdom. He moved on. The Greeks admired this about him. He didn't hold the grudge forever. The mortals built temples for every god. Each temple faced east toward the sunrise, toward Apollo. Inside they placed gifts, not payment, recognition. The Greeks understood the difference. They also built theaters, because the myths were not only to be told, they were to be performed, lived. The greatest honor a story can have, to be put in people's bodies, not just their minds. Dionysus was the god of theater, also wine, also transformation. The god who was born twice was the patron of all the ways mortals become something other than what they are. For a night, for an hour, for the length of a play. The myths were not separate from life. They were inside it. Every wedding invoked Aphrodite and Hera. Every sea journey honored Poseidon. Every harvest thanked Demeter. Every question went to Delphi. Mortals prayed not for miracles. They prayed for appropriate things, safe passage, fair weather, enough rain, good judgment. The gods were not infinite. They were specific. That's what made them believable. Zeus looked at the world and made a decision. He would send a great hero. Someone half mortal, half divine. Someone who could walk between the worlds the gods and mortals inhabited. Someone the myths could follow. The heroes came from this thinking. Heracles, Perseus, Achilles, each one born from a divine parent and a mortal one. Each one given a task impossible enough to prove something. Each one tested by what they could not avoid. Heracles was the first and the most. 12 labors. Tasks given as punishment, then completed as proof. He cleaned stables that hadn't been touched in 30 years. He held up the sky so Atlas could rest. He was not wise. He was not strategic. He was strong and he was determined, and he made catastrophic mistakes, and he kept going. That's the part that stayed with the Greeks, not the strength. The keeping going. Perseus was different, he thought. He planned. He used a reflective shield to look at Medusa, whose gaze turned things to stone, without looking at her directly. He asked for help. He accepted gifts. He carried the head afterward in a bag, because even dead, Medusa's gaze could petrify. He used it more than once. He rescued Andromeda. He defeated a sea monster. Then he put the head where it could protect a city. Theseus took the labyrinth. The Minotaur waited at the center. Not an accident, the Minotaur was always at the center. What you fear is never at the edge of the maze. It is at the middle of it. He held a thread. Ariadne, the princess who loved him, gave him one end and kept the other. He walked into the dark with the thread as his only certainty. That's the part that stays with you, the thread. He found the Minotaur at the center. Half man, half bull. Neither thing completely. The Greeks understood monsters as things caught between natures. Not evil confused. The Minotaur did not choose what it was. He followed the thread back. He had done the thing at the center of the maze. He walked back out through every decision he'd made on the way in. The thread held. It always does if someone else is holding the other end. The heroes made the world safer for mortals. Each one cleared something, a monster, a fear, a wrong order of things. Not permanently. Things came back, but for a while the roads were passable. This is what the heroes were for. Not to replace the gods, not to become gods, to make the space between divine and mortal livable. To show that someone who would break could survive the breaking. Remember that for later. The Greeks did not have a word for religion as we use it. What they had was mythos, which meant simply a story. A story that explains the structure of things. That was enough. They did not ask, is this literally true? They asked, does this story make the world make sense? A different question entirely. One the myths could actually answer. The creation myth explained grief, Demeter's winter. It explained injustice, Prometheus's chains. It explained the strange mix of beauty and pain in the world. Pandora's jar. The myths held what the world actually felt like. That was their power. When a Greek sailor drowned, his family did not say the sea took him. They said Poseidon called him. A death became a relationship. A loss became a story. The myth transformed the unbearable into the bearable. This is what the oldest stories do. They make things personal. They say someone has been here before. Someone very old. Someone very large. And they understood. So can you. The Titans were not forgotten in Tartarus. Not entirely. The Greeks remembered them as what came before order, not villains, predecessors. Kronos himself was given the Elysian fields to rule eventually. Even the loser got somewhere quiet. Atlas still held the sky. He had sided with the Titans in the war, not against Zeus, the stories say, but for the world as it was. His punishment was to hold the world as it became. There is a kind of dignity in that. Prometheus, still on his rock, was eventually freed. By Heracles. The great hero climbed the Caucasus, shot the eagle with an arrow, broke the chains. Zeus allowed it. He had made his point. They met a Heracles and Prometheus. The hero who kept going and the god who did not regret. The stories don't say what they talked about. Maybe there was nothing to say. Some recognitions don't need words. Prometheus walked. For the first time in an age without chains. The Greeks say he wore a ring of iron forever after and a crown of willow. To remember, not the pain, the reason. The mortals built more cities, roads, ships. They sailed to the edges of the known world and found more world beyond. The myths followed them. New lands meant new gods, or the same gods with new names. Every city had its patron. Athens had Athena. Corinth had Poseidon. Delphi belonged to Apollo. Eleusis, where the Persephone mystery was kept to Demeter. The gods shaped the land by being claimed by it. The Eleusinian mysteries were held each year. The secret rituals of Demeter and Persephone. Initiates traveled to Eleusis and went through rites no one was allowed to describe. For centuries, no one did. We still don't know exactly what happened there. What we know is that participants reported losing their fear of death. Whatever happened inside, they came out changed. The Greeks believed the rite showed them what Persephone knew. That below is also a world. And that crossing into it is not the end. The world the creation myth built was not perfect. The gods quarreled. The mortals suffered. Unjust things happened. The myth did not explain these away. It named them, put them in the story, made them part of the order. The great myths were not comfort, not only comfort. They were honest. They said the world came from chaos. It is still partly chaos. The gods who made it are flawed. You came from all of that. What do you do now? Here's the part that's easy to miss. The Greeks made these gods flawed on purpose. A perfect god has no advice for an imperfect person. A god who has suffered, chosen wrongly, been afraid that God knows something useful. This is why Hephaestus matters. The thrown-away god who built everything. The one who made himself indispensable from the rubble of his exile. His story is for every person who has been discarded and kept working anyway. This is why Hermes matters. The youngest Olympian, born in a cave, stolen the cattle of the oldest by afternoon. He didn't wait for permission. He moved. He carried the messages between worlds because he had always moved between them. This is why Dionysus matters. The god born twice, who grew up among mortals, who knew what it was to almost not make it. He gave them wine and theater, and the sacred disruption of the ordinary. He knew what they needed because he had needed it. The world the creation myth describes is not the world the Greeks wished for. It is the world they lived in. That's the difference between a wish and a myth. A wish says, let it be different. A myth says, this is how it is. Something was building. The gods had ordered the world. The heroes had cleared the roads. The mortals had built cities. The Titans slept in Tartarus. But order, once established, is always being tested. Typhon came from the earth, the last great monster born from Gaia and Tartarus together. Gaia's final act of rebellion against the gods who had imprisoned her children. He was vast. He was fire. He was everything Chaos had been. The gods fled. Even Zeus at first. The Olympians scattered, some changed themselves into animals, some ran to Egypt, some simply disappeared. Typhon was too much, not yet beaten, just too much. Zeus came back alone. He faced Typhon on the slopes of Mount Cassius. He threw lightning. Typhon threw mountains. The fight was vast enough to reshape the land. Typhon took the lightning bolt from Zeus. For a moment, the king of the gods stood without his power. The sinews of his hands and feet had been cut. He could not move. That was the lowest moment. Hermes and Pan helped him. Hermes recovered the sinews, stole them back from Typhon. Pan distracted Typhon with a terrible cry that sent even the monster stumbling. The gods who helped from the edges were the ones who saved the center. Zeus recovered his lightning. He returned to the fight. Typhon tried to flee to Sicily. Zeus threw Mount Etna on him. The mountain pressed him into the earth. He is still there. The volcano is his breath. The last great challenge to Olympian order was defeated. Buried, not destroyed, buried. The Greeks understood that chaos is not eliminated, only contained. It breathes under the mountain. It waits. Order is not the absence of chaos. It is the weight that holds it. The Olympians returned to their thrones. Hestia lit the hearth again. The world resumed. But it was different. They had been tested. They had fled. They had come back. The gods who came back knew something the gods who never fled did not. Zeus looked at the world from his throne. Typhon was buried. The Titans were contained. The mortals were building. The heroes were clearing the roads. The gods were in their places. This was as close to order as it would get. It was not perfect. It never was. The myths are honest about this. Injustice continued. Gods interfered carelessly. Mortals suffered for the choices of the divine. But the structure held. The chaos was beneath the mountain. The creation myth was not a single story. It was a structure. Within it, every Greek myth found its place. Heracles made sense because of Prometheus. Perseus made sense because of Medusa. The Trojan War made sense because of Zeus. The Trojan War happened because Zeus could not decide between three goddesses and gave the judgment to a mortal, because he was afraid of what choosing would cost him. Fear, again, at the center of things. The war lasted 10 years, the same length as the Titanomachy. The Greeks noticed this. The war between gods and the war between mortals rhymed. Everything that happens echoes what came before. The heroes of the Trojan War were the last great heroes. After them, the age of heroes ended. The world became less mythic, more ordinary. The Greeks did not mourn this. They called it progress. What remained were the myths themselves. The stories. Hesiod wrote them down. Homer sang them. The playwrights performed them. The myths outlasted the gods who were in them. Stories always do. The creation myth ends where it began, in the question of order. Chaos was there first. Then came order, through pain and revolution and love and fear and loss. And now the world is here, including this night, including you. The same stars. That's worth staying with. Every star you've ever looked at, the Greeks looked at the same ones. named them for the same myths. Orion, Cassiopeia, the Pleiades. The myths are still up there. They go nowhere. Chaos became Gaia. Gaia made the sky. The sky and earth made the Titans. The Titans made the Olympians possible. The Olympians made the world we know. And somewhere in all of that becoming, the first person looked up and told the first story. And here we are, still telling it. Still making order out of the chaos of the day. Still using the oldest stories we have to make the night bearable. 3,000 years of the same gesture. We're in good company. But here is where everything the myth built was tested. Zeus, who had ended Kronos' reign, who had defeated Typhon, who had ordered the world, faced something he had never faced. The Fates. The Fates were not made by Zeus. They were not made by Gaia. They emerged from chaos alongside the first things. They spun the thread of every life, a god and mortal both. Even Zeus could not cut what they had spun. Zeus learned this. He did not fight it. That was his wisdom, a knowing what could not be fought. He ruled what he could rule. He accepted what he could not change. The king of gods was not all-powerful. He was only the most powerful. The myth closes here, at the place where everything the gods built runs up against what they did not build. Fate. The one thing older than order. The Greeks understood this as the final honesty of the universe. Even the greatest power has a limit. And Gaia, who started all of this, remained below everything. Patient as only something that was before everything can be. The earth that made the sky. The mother who hid her youngest son. The body that held what was pushed into it and waited. She is still here. The world had been ordered. But order is never finished. It is kept. Every generation inherits the chaos beneath the mountain and the thread in the fate's hands. The question was never, did it get built? The question was, who keeps it? The gods had been tested by Typhon. They had fled and returned. Something shifted in them after that. They became more careful, less careless with their power. Not wiser or more careful. There is a difference. Prometheus had been freed. He walked the earth again. He watched the mortals, the ones he had made, the ones he had given fire, the ones who had thrived. He did not regret. He also did not intervene again. He had learned what that cost. The mortals did not know his name in most of their daily lives. They used fire. They cooked with it. They kept it through winter. The gift had become ordinary. That is the highest achievement a gift can reach. Pandora's jar still existed. Hope inside it. The Greeks argued for centuries about this. Was hope kept inside to protect mortals from using it up? Or was it kept inside as punishment, a hope withheld from those who needed it most? The debate was never settled. The myth left it open deliberately. Some things are not resolved, they are held. The jar is still closed. Hope is still inside. Whether that is mercy or cruelty, the world continues either way. A new challenge came, not from Typhon, not from the Titans. From within Olympus itself. The gods had been together since the war. They knew each other too well. They began to disagree. Hera and Zeus quarreled. This was not new. But the quarrels grew larger. Hera was the queen. She had been swallowed by Kronos and freed by Zeus. She owed him her existence and resented owing it. That is a specific kind of weight. Zeus had children outside their marriage, many. Each one a problem for Hera. Not because of jealousy, the Greeks were clear that was too simple. Because each child born of Zeus and a mortal was a challenge to divine order. A blurring of the line. This is the part that's easy to miss. Hera's opposition to the heroes was not personal cruelty. It was structural. Each hero blurred the boundary between divine and mortal. Hera held the boundary. She was doing her job. The heroes tested that boundary with every labor. Heracles especially. He crossed into the underworld. He held up the sky. He fought gods directly. Each time, the boundary held but barely. Hera noticed every strain. Heracles completed his labors. He died by accident through a poisoned cloak and ascended to Olympus. The boundary broke. A mortal became a god. Zeus made it happen. Hera accepted it. They had reached something, not peace, recognition. The world after Heracles was different. The boundary had been crossed. Mortals knew it could be crossed. This changed how they lived and how the gods governed. A new arrangement was quietly made. Poseidon watched the sea change as the mortal sailors grew more capable. They built better ships. They navigated by the stars. They went farther. He approved. The god of the sea preferred mortals who could survive it. Athena watched the mortals build philosophy. They began to ask the questions she had always asked. Why does the world have the shape it has? She gave them the tools and stepped back. That was her way. Apollo gave the muses their work, 9 of them each governing a different art. Epic poetry, history, love poetry, music, tragedy, comedy, dance, astronomy, sacred song. The arts were not decoration. They were how the myths stayed alive. The myths were kept alive by the artists. Homer didn't invent the Odyssey. He received it, shaped it, gave it the form that survived. The storytellers were the thread that connected the creation to the present. Remember them, for later. Dionysus gave them theater, and theater gave the myths a body. The audience sat in the open air. The actors wore masks. The chorus sang what the characters could not say. For 3 hours, the myth was real. The plays they wrote were not entertainment. They were civic ritual. Every citizen attended. The city watched the myths together. They wept together. They laughed together. They carried the story home, and it stayed with them. Sophocles wrote Oedipus. Aeschylus wrote the Oresteia. Euripides wrote Medea. Each one took a myth and made it into a wound that healed by being opened. The Greeks understood catharsis, the release that only comes through feeling the worst of it. The creation myth contains all of this. The tragedy of Prometheus. The catharsis of Persephone. The comedy of Hermes stealing cattle as an infant. Every emotional register, every human experience, the myth holds it. Something was changing in the world. The gods were becoming quieter. The heroes were gone. The mortals were becoming more capable of explaining the world without the myths. A new age was arriving. The Greeks called it the Age of Iron. Socrates asked questions. Plato wrote them down. Aristotle organized them. They did not destroy the myths. They argued with them, used them, compared them. The myths were still the shared language, even when being questioned. Plato used the myth of error, a soldier who died and returned, to talk about what happens after death. He used Prometheus to talk about civilization. He used the creation myth to talk about the nature of time. He trusted the myths to carry the hardest ideas. The world was changing. But the myths were not leaving. They were going deeper, into the ground of the culture, becoming the thing that everything else grew from. Roots are not visible. That is how you know they are working. Gaia was still beneath it all, patient as she had always been. The mother who was never worshipped quite as much as the gods who came from her. The ground that no one thanks for holding them up. The fates kept spinning. The thread ran through every life, a god and mortal and hero. Each one measured. Each one cut at the right moment. The creation myth ends not with a victory, but with a continuation. Things keep going. A new threat was forming. Not from the earth, not from the titans, from the edges of the divine world. Places the Olympians had not fully ordered. The dark corners of the myth that were never quite resolved. We'll come back to this. The creation myth is honest about this. Order does not eliminate what existed before it. Chaos is below the mountain. The old things are at the edges. The thread runs through everything, cutting when it cuts. But tonight you are at the center. The chaos is below the mountain. The fates are elsewhere. The edges of the world are quiet. Tonight, the order holds. The earth is patient below you. Rest in that. The edges of the ordered world were not empty. They held what the Olympians had not resolved, old things. Half-formed things. The world the creation myth built was wide, but not infinite. Beyond the edges, the original dark still moved. The Olympians had divided the world cleanly, sky, sea, below, but the in-between places belonged to no one. The cave mouths, the river crossings, the threshold between night and day. These were the places where the old things still lived. The nymphs held these spaces. Naiads in the rivers, dryads in the old trees, oryds in the mountain passes, not gods as something older. Presences that had been in the world before Gaia named herself. Pan lived in the wild places, half man, half goat, the god of wilderness and panic. He made the sound that had distracted Typhon. He was older than most of the Olympians, and he cared nothing for order. The world the creation myth made had space for wildness. Not everything was ordered. The gods knew this. Pan's domain was real and recognized. Wilderness was not a failure of order. It was part of the plan. The chaos that stayed outside the mountain. Hecate ruled the crossroads, the three-faced goddess. She saw every direction at once. She was present where choices were made, where roads divided, where the future was not yet determined. The Greeks left offerings at crossroads for her. Morpheus shaped dreams. The god of dream form, son of Hypnos, sleep, and grandson of Nyxa, night. He could take any shape in the sleeping mind. He carried messages from the gods to mortals in the dark hours. Hypnos lived in a cave at the edge of the underworld. He breathed sleep through the world each night. His brother was Thanos, a death. The two of them worked quietly, without drama, sleep and death, the gentlest things. Nyxa, night, was among the first things. She drove her chariot across the sky each evening. She was older than Zeus. He respected her above most beings. Even he did not cross night without asking. Use brought the dawn. Her saffron robes opening the sky each morning, her tears for her mortal son Memnon falling as the dew. Even the dawn had grief in it. Even the most beautiful beginning carried something. The world was full of these presences. Every river had its god, every mountain its nymph, every wind its deity. The Greek world was not empty, it was crowded. Every natural thing had an intention behind it. The mortals lived inside all of this. They were not alone in any forest or beside any river. The world was inhabited, watched, sometimes helped, sometimes not, but never indifferent. The myth gave them a world that paid attention. The muses breathed through the poets. When Homer sang, the Greeks believed Calliope, a muse of epic poetry, moved his voice. The artist was a channel. The myth came through them, not from them. Sappho wrote of Aphrodite. Pindar wrote of the heroes, each one receiving their myth through their muse, giving it their own shape, sending it forward. The myth was not fixed. It was alive, growing, carried by whoever would carry it. Something was shifting at the edges again. The new threat that had been forming, the unnamed things in the unordered places, had found a shape, not a monster, a question. The question the mortals had begun to ask. The question was this: what if the gods are not separate from the world, but are the world? What if Poseidon is not a being who controls the sea, but the sea itself, its nature made personal? The philosophers were beginning to think differently. This was not the end of the myths. It was their transformation. The gods did not disappear when the philosophers questioned them. They went deeper, into the language, into the art, into the very structure of how the Greeks thought. Aristotle said the lover of myth is in a sense a lover of wisdom. He understood what the myths were doing, not explaining, illuminating, making the light fall differently on things that were already there. The creation myth survived this transformation because it was not only a story about gods, it was a story about the nature of things. Chaos becoming order, fear becoming something survivable, loss becoming season. That is not religion, that is observation. Stay with this, it matters before the end. The creation myth does not say the world was made and now it is finished. It says, the world is always being made. From whatever chaos today brought, into whatever order tomorrow might hold. The Trojan War ended. The heroes came home, those who could. Odysseus wandered for 10 more years. The myth followed him. The creation myth's logic ran through the Odyssey to chaos, then the long effort toward order, then home. He came home. The creation myth always comes home. From chaos emergence, from violence a order, from the long dark, a kind of light. Not perfect, never perfect, but home. The creation myth spread. The Romans took it, changed the names, kept the shapes. Zeus became Jupiter. Hera became Juno. Poseidon became Neptune. The myth moved into new languages and kept working. The names changed. The planets kept the Roman names: Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Venus. The days of the week in many languages still carry them. The myth is in the names of the days you live in. The myth went further. Into Christianity it carried Prometheus, the suffering god who gave the gift. Into psychology it carried Oedipus and Narcissus and Electra. The stories became the vocabulary of the human interior. Carl Jung called the myths archetypes, patterns in the human mind so deep they appear in every culture's stories. The trickster, the great mother, the hero's journey, the descent and return, the creation from chaos, all of them everywhere. Chaos becoming order. That is the deepest pattern. Every culture has a creation story that begins in formlessness and ends in the world, because every life begins that way, and every day, every morning chaos resolving into a day, and every night the reverse, order returning to chaos, the day releasing its shape, the mind releasing its grip, the world going soft at the edges. This is not failure. This is Nyx doing her work. This is the myth completing its cycle. You are in that part of the cycle right now. The day has been held. The order has been maintained. The chaos is below the mountain. Nyx is doing her work. Hypnos is close. You can release what you held. The creation myth was made for this moment, for the end of the day, for the return to the formless before tomorrow's form. The Greeks told it at night, by fire, when the world went dark and the stories could hold what the light couldn't. Hypnos had brothers and sisters beyond Thanatos, children of Nyx, among them a Nemesis, the balance keeper, Eris, the discord bringer, Momus, the fault finder. Nyx's children were the difficult necessities, what the night makes possible. Nemesis watched when the balance was disturbed, when someone took more than their portion, when pride exceeded its appropriate size. She did not punish, she balanced. The Greeks had a word for the pride that invites her: hubris. Hubris was not simply arrogance. It was the specific act of reaching beyond your portion, of forgetting what you were. The gods committed it too. Zeus committed it. The myth did not exempt anyone. That's why it lasted. The creation myth includes hubris because creation itself is a kind of hubris. The void deciding to become something. The earth making the sky refusing to let the children exist. Every act of making is also an overreach, and every act of making is corrected. The sky was separated from the earth. Kronos was overthrown. Typhon was buried. Each overreach met its balance. This is not pessimism, it is physics. The myth describes the actual mechanics of things. Maybe you know this feeling. You've been carrying something overextended, beyond your portion. The day asked more than it should have. That's not failure. That's the condition. Nemesis is not punishment. She is the world returning to balance, including you. The night corrects the overreach of the day. Sleep corrects the overreach of waking. The myth knew this. Hypnos and Nemesis were both children of Nyx, both necessary, both gentle when allowed their work. The world the creation myth made has this balance built in. Day and night, overreach and correction. Chaos below the mountain and order above it. The myth did not describe a perfect world. It described a balanced one. Here is the part the myths never make obvious. Balance is not stillness. The scale is always moving. The correction is always happening. The creation is always ongoing. Balance is not a state, it is a practice. The creation myth spread beyond Greece because it described what every culture experienced. Not the specific names, the specific feelings. The chaos that preceded you. The making that hurt. The order that keeps requiring maintenance. The Babylonians told it with Tiamat and Marduk, the salt sea goddess and the storm god who split her body to make the world. The same shape. Chaos as a being, a violent making. An ordered world from a difficult birth. The Egyptians told it with Nun, the primordial waters, and Ra emerging from a lotus on the first day. The same still dark. The same first emergence. The same light arriving in the formless. The Norse told it with Ymir in the void of Ginnungagap, ice and fire meeting. A giant made from the collision, the gods killing the giant and making the world from his body. Violent honest. Creation as destruction repurposed. Every culture reaches for the same thing. The darkness before. The first making. The difficult birth of order from chaos. The world is something that had to be won. The same story in every language, because it is not a story about gods. It is a story about us. The creation myth is a story about us. About the chaos we were born into. The making that hurt. The order we inherited and are asked to keep. And the hope still in the jar, that things can be better than they are. The world turned. Seasons passed. The Greeks built and argued and sailed. The myths were told and retold. Something was coming and not a threat, a completion. The myth had been building towards something since chaos first became Gaia. The completion was not a victory. It was a recognition. The order that Zeus built was not the opposite of chaos. It was chaos that had found its shape. The two were not enemies. They were the same thing at different moments. Gaia saw this. She had been below everything, patient since the beginning. She had made the sky and the Titans and put the sickle in Kronos' hand and hidden Zeus in the cave. She had set all of this in motion. She watched it arrive at its meaning. She was not finished. She never would be. The earth keeps making. The seasons keep turning. The chaos below the mountain keeps breathing. Creation is not an event. It is an ongoing condition. And Gaia is always at the center of it. The darkness before creation is not far away. It is close. The fates are spinning. The night is here. Chaos is below the mountain. And within all of that, the earth holds you. The oldest thing there is. Holding you up. Right now. The gods began to change. Not disappear, change. As the mortal world grew more complex, the gods became more internal. Less people walking through the world. More principles working within it. The Greeks who lived at the end of their classical age understood this. The gods had not left. They had become the vocabulary of the inner world, and that world was as vast as any Olympus. This is the gift the creation myth ultimately gives. Not an explanation of where the world came from. A map of what the world feels like from the inside. The chaos, the making, the afraid ruler, the patient earth, the hope in the jar. You have a Kronos inside you, the part that fears what you've made and tries to hold it back. You have a Prometheus, the part that gives something costly because it's right. You have a Gaia patient holding everything. The creation myth is a story about you. It was always a story about you. 3,000 years ago, the Greeks made it into gods so they could see it more clearly. But it was always describing this. A life moving from chaos toward something. Tonight, your chaos is below the mountain. Whatever disorder the day held, it is below the mountain now. The fates are spinning but not cutting. Nyx is here. Hypnos is close. You have held enough for one day. Let the muses have the rest of it. Let Morpheus shape whatever comes next. The story is still moving. It will be here when you return to it. You don't have to hold the whole myth tonight. The myth holds itself. The fates spun a thread for every person who has ever listened to this story. 3,000 years of listeners. You are one more thread in that, not the last, not the only one. Part of a very old weaving. Gaia holds all of them. Every person who has ever slept on the earth. The first mortal Prometheus shaped from clay. The Greek farmer who planted his grain and thanked Demeter. You tonight. All of them. She holds all of them. The stars are the same. Orion is where Orion has always been. The Pleiades, Cassiopeia. The myth in the sky above every person who has looked up. You are looking at the same stars. The creation is still visible. Selene carried the moon across the sky. Sister of Helios, the sun. She drove her silver chariot through the dark hours. Tonight, her light is on everything. The creation myth lit from above by one of its own. The creation myth ends every night and begins every morning. Nyx and Yos, the dark and the saffron dawn. Between them this, the sleep that makes tomorrow possible. The myths always knew that sleep was sacred. Hypnos was divine. Rest was not weakness, it was the night half of the creation. The part where the world returned to its formless potential, ready to be shaped again by morning. Tomorrow Zeus will open the sky. Apollo will drive the sun across it. Demeter's grain will move toward the light. The order will resume. But right now is for Nyx and Hypnos. It is for rest. The myth is quiet now. The gods are in their places. The Titans are in Tartarus. Prometheus walks free. Persephone is above for now. The chaos is below the mountain. The thread runs on. Everything is where it should be. Hestia tends the fire. Selene moves the moon. Hypnos breathes sleep into the world. The fates spin Gaia holds. This is the night shift of the creation, older than history, happening right now, including for you. The creation myth always was a sleep story. It was told at night. It described the darkness before the world. It made the night familiar. It gave the dark a history and a purpose. You are in the oldest story there is. 3,000 years ago, someone lay down at the end of the day and the same story was told. The same darkness, the same Nyx, the same Hypnos, the same Gaia beneath them. You are that continuous with the beginning of the world. The creation was always ongoing. The chaos is always below. The order is always being kept. The hope is always in the jar. And tonight, the jar is close. You can feel it. The warmth at the bottom of things that stays. Breathe, the fates are spinning but not cutting. Hypnos is here. The earth holds you. The chaos is far below tonight. You made it to the end of the day. That is enough. That has always been enough. The creation myth will continue tomorrow. The sun will rise because Apollo drives it. The grain will grow because Demeter tends it. The sea will move because Poseidon moves it. And the story will still be here, waiting. For now, only this. The dark that was there before the first world. The dark that holds the sleeping world. The dark that chaos was before anything had a name, safe, ancient yours. The river Lethe ran through the underworld. The river of forgetting. The dead drank from it before being reborn. The Greeks understood that rest requires a kind of forgetting. The day released, the burden set down. Drink from Lethe tonight. The Elysian fields were not heaven. They were the place of ease, where things were not difficult, where the good dead went to simply be, without labor or fear. For tonight you have earned that, just to be. The stars keep their positions, Orion at his post. The Pleiades clustered as they were when the Greeks named them. The sky Oranos became, still there. Looking down at a world that has been sleeping under it, for as long as there have been people to sleep. Morpheus shapes what comes next, not directs as shapes. The dreams are yours. He gives them form. What the day couldn't hold, the dream holds. The creation myth continues in the sleeping mind, making order from the chaos of the waking day. The myth is in the dream now. Gaia below, Nyx above, the fates with their thread. Morpheus shaping the chaos into something you can rest in. The creation myth was always also a dream. The oldest dream, the one the world had before it had people. Sleep. The creation is still going. You are part of it. You don't have to do anything. Gaia holds. Nyx covers. Hypnos breathes. The fates spin. Morpheus shapes. You only have to let them. The world came from chaos. It found its shape. It held that shape through fear and war and loss and love. And tonight, in this one quiet place, the shape holds. The chaos is below the mountain. You are on the mountain rest. 3,000 years of this story. 3,000 years of people at the end of the day, too tired to hold everything, finding the oldest words they knew and letting them carry the weight. That's us tonight. In good company. The creation myth will not end. Not really. It goes on in every culture that tells a creation story. In every person who has ever felt the chaos of a long day resolve into the quiet of night. In you right now. Gaia is below you, the same Gaia who rose from chaos, who made Oranos, who put the sickle in Kronos' hand, who hid Zeus in the cave, who set all of this in motion. She is below every person sleeping on the earth tonight. She is patient. She has been patient since before the sky existed. One more night is nothing to Gaia. She will hold as long as she needs to. She held the Titans for a generation. She can hold you for a night. And the hope is in the jar, still there. Whatever flew out, whatever the day released into the world, hope is still in the jar. It does not run out. That is the one thing Pandora's jar tells us with certainty. The hope stays. The fates are spinning somewhere. The thread continues. But tonight they are content to spin. They are not measuring. They are not cutting. The thread is running long and smooth. This is one of those nights. The wind god Aeolus has put the winds to rest. The sea is still. Poseidon's waters quiet. Even the ocean tonight is doing what Hypnos asked of it. Everything is quiet. That is not common. Take it while it's here. Hypnos breathes. His breath moves through the world like a slow tide. Room by room, city by city, the world going quiet. You can feel it. The weight of eyes. The softening of the day's grip. That is his breath reaching you. The myth is almost done for tonight. Not ended arresting. The way Gaia rests beneath the world. The way the chaos rests below the mountain. The way the hope rests in the jar. Resting is not ending. Remember that for later. The creation myth will be here in the morning. The chaos will still be below the mountain. The hope will still be in the jar. The stars will still carry the names the Greeks gave them. None of it goes anywhere. It waits, patient as Gaia. Let the story hold what you cannot hold tonight. That is what the oldest stories were for. Not to be understood, to do the holding for you. Put it down. The myth has carried heavier things than this. The chaos that made the world made you too. The same force. The same reaching into form. The same unlikely order from improbable dark. You are not separate from the creation myth. You are in it. Gaia made Kronos so she would not be alone. She made the sky so the earth would have something to reach toward. You are part of that reaching. Part of what the earth has been making since it first looked up. Tonight, you don't have to reach. The sky is there. The stars are where they always are. The earth is below you, patient. You have been part of the creation all day. Now be part of the rest. The creation myth is not about a time that passed. It is about the ongoing nature of things. Chaos becoming order. Every day, night. Every breath. The myth is not history. It is the present, described in ancient words. The oldest story is still being told. Tonight, we told it again. Added another night to the 3,000 years of nights this story has traveled through. You were part of that. You are that continuous with the beginning of everything. And now, here it is. The deepest truth the creation myth holds. After all the chaos and the war, and the making and the ordering, the world returned to the question it began with. Not what came from the void, but what the void actually was. The void was not nothing. The Greeks understood this from the beginning. Chaos was full of potential, full of everything that would ever be. The void was not absence, it was unmanifest presence. Everything, before it had a name. You came from that, not distantly, directly. The atoms in you were in that chaos. The creation myth is not a metaphor for your origin. It is your actual origin. The darkness before was also your before. You are that old. That is the final thing the creation myth says. You are the creation still happening. The chaos in you is the original chaos. The order you make each day is the original order. You are not watching the myth. You are the myth. Sleep now. The creation will continue without you for a few hours. It always does. The chaos holds its place. The order holds its shape. Gaia holds her breath. The hope stays warm in the jar. And you, for a little while, a rest in the oldest arms there are. The creation myth has been told. Not completed and told. There is a difference. A story this old is never completed. It only rests between tellings. Tonight's telling is done. What remains is what always remains, the weight of it settling. What the creation myth carries is this: the world was not given. It was made. Through difficulty. Through fear and revolution and grief, and the patient holding of a mother who never stopped making. And you are part of that making. The chaos that made the world is in you. The Prometheus who gives a costly gift is in you. The Persephone who descends and returns is in you. The hope in the jar is in you. The descent into darkness, a Persephone's 6 months, is not a punishment in the end. It is a season, something that makes the return possible. The light is brighter for the dark that preceded it. Maybe you know that. The Prometheus in you has paid some costs, given gifts that hurt to give. That's the part that stays with you, isn't it? The things you gave that cost something real. The myth says that is the most important thing you can do. The Kronos in you, the fear that holds things back, is not a villain. He was afraid of what he'd made, afraid of being displaced. Fear that size is still only fear. The myth says name it. Name it and it loses the sickle. The Hephaestus in you, the thrown-away self, the broken thing that built everything anyway, deserves recognition. The leg that never healed, the forge that never stopped. Both of those are true simultaneously. You know this. The Gaia in you, the one who holds everything, who set the whole story in motion, and then waited, patient, while the storm played out above her. That part of you is the oldest and the most necessary. It holds even when it costs everything to hold. And the hope in the jar, that particular warm thing at the bottom of what has been emptied, the myth says it stays. It does not say it is enough. It says it stays. That is not nothing. That is the most specific promise the creation myth makes. The creation myth is not a story about a time that was better. The Greeks did not think the Golden Age was superior. They thought it was incomplete. The world that came after, with all its difficulty, was more fully itself. The world with Prometheus's fire was harder and more alive. The world with Pandora's gifts was full of grief and full of hope. The world after Typhon was tested and still standing. Each difficulty made the world more fully itself. You are the world with all of that in it. The fire and the grief, and the hope still in the jar, and the difficulty that made you more fully yourself. The creation myth says that is not in spite of what you are. It is what you are. The fates are not cruel. They are precise. The thread runs exactly as long as it needs to. No longer, no shorter. Tonight your thread is running. The shears are still. The fates are content with the length they've given. The stars that the creation myth named are still above you. Orion hunting. The Pleiades clustered, Cassiopeia turning. The myth is overhead, literal and present. You sleep under the same sky the Greeks named. That is not a small thing. The earth is below you, Gaia's body. The same body that rose from chaos, that made the sky. That held the titans and hid the youngest god, and set the revolution in motion. That body is below you, right now holding. The chaos is below the mountain. The order holds tonight. The hope is in the jar. The fates are spinning, not cutting. Nyx is above. Hypnos is here. All the conditions for rest are met. They have been met for 3,000 years, on nights like this. The creation myth asks nothing of you tonight. It has given what it has to give. The rest is up to Hypnos now, and Morpheus, and the long, patient dark. Let them do what they were made to do. The creation continues. In the dark, without you having to participate. The chaos holds its place. The earth makes its slow work. The stars keep their courses. The fates spin. Morning is being prepared somewhere by yous. You were part of the creation today. You made order from whatever chaos the day brought. You held something together. You gave something. You kept the fire going. That is the Promethean work. It is enough. It is more than enough. Sleep. The creation is doing its nightly work without you. The myth is in the air. The earth holds. The hope is warm. And you, who are part of this oldest story, are allowed for a few hours to simply be held by it. Rest now. The creation myth left something in every culture it touched. Not the gods, the structure. Chaos becoming order. The dark before the first light. The mother who makes and holds. These shapes are in every tradition that followed. The names of the planets still carry the Roman versions of these gods. Every time someone says Saturday, they say Saturn, Kronos. Every time someone says Thursday, they say Thor, the heir of the same tradition. The myth is in the days of the week. The word chaos still means what the Greeks meant, the formless before form. The word music comes from the Muses. Morphine from Morpheus. Hypnosis from Hypnos. The myth is in the language you use every day without knowing it. Psychology took the names and filled them with the interior. Narcissus became narcissism. Oedipus named a complex. Psyche, the goddess of the soul, became the name for the study of the mind. The myth became the language of the self. The hero's journey, the pattern Joseph Campbell named, is the creation myth in miniature, chaos. The call, the descent, the return with the gift. Every story that has ever worked for you follows this shape, because it is the shape of things. Every time you make something a meal, a plan, a sentence, a day, you repeat the creation myth. Chaos in, order out. The making that Gaia began is the making you do every morning when you organize the chaos of waking into the structure of a day. Every time you hold something together when it wants to fall apart, you are Gaia. The patient holding, the weight bearing, the earth below the storm. The myth named what you do and gave it the weight it deserves. Every time you descend into something difficult and come back changed, you are Persephone. The descent was not optional. The return was not diminished by the going down. You came back knowing something you didn't know before. That is the spring. Every time you give something costly because it is right, the iron ring, the willow crown, the hope still warm despite the cost, you are doing the Promethean work. The myth says this is the highest thing, not the easiest. The highest. The creation myth is still going, in the stars above you, in the ground below you, in the language you think in the patterns you follow without knowing you follow them. The myth did not end. It became the world, and the world is still here. The story is done. The night is doing its work, Gaia below, Nyx above. The chaos held, the hope still warm. Everything is where it should be tonight. The fire that Prometheus carried is still burning somewhere. It has been burning for a very long time. It will burn through the night. You don't have to tend it right now. Persephone is above the earth tonight. The season is whatever season it is. The grain is doing what grain does. Demeter is not grieving right now. The world is in its right arrangement. The fates are spinning, slowly tonight. The thread runs long and smooth. This is one of the good nights. Let it be that. Hypnos breathes through the world. His breath is on everything now. The light behind your eyes. The weight of your hands. The softening. That is him. Let him work. Morpheus is close. He shapes what comes next. Whatever arrives in the dark hours, it is his. It is yours. The myth will be there if you want it, or something else entirely. Either way, you are held. Nyx has the night. She has had it since before there was a sky to have. She is very good at this. Trust her with it. Gaia holds. She has been holding since the beginning. She will hold until morning. She will hold after morning. This is what she does. You are held. The chaos is below the mountain. The hope is in the jar. The stars are overhead. The story has been told. Everything that needed to be said tonight has been said. Rest now. We'll be here when you're ready.